He kept coming by the cubicle every day. But before he had come to our group, we had all signed up for our vacations. And it had been scheduled and had been approved. And my vacation was coming up within 2 weeks. I had my plane tickets, my reservations. I was ready to go. He comes by one day and he tells me, you can't go on vacation.
Oh.
Why? He says, we got a lot of work to do and nobody's going to know what you're doing. If you know me, I'm a detail person. I already have this document here, step by step, what we're doing, what the deadlines are, where I am, and what needs to be done. And I gave it to him. He walks away. He comes back a little bit later and he tells me, this isn't going to do it because people are not going to know what you're talking about, where you have over here about compile these modules.
Boy.
I said, what? This is a data processing company. Everybody in this group is some level of programmer. Mostly everybody in this company is. They're not going to get somebody passing by and ask them to do this. Well, he says, nevertheless, you can't go. My stress level kept getting higher and higher. My husband and I used to carpool. So this one morning, he drove me up to the building, said, goodbye, have a nice day. And I sat there and I started crying. Not just crying, I started sobbing. My heart started beating faster and I started saying, I can't go in there. I cannot go in there. You cannot imagine how I felt. I couldn't go in there. He sat there with me the whole time while I cried. And when I got myself together, I got out of the car and I walked up to the main building, the main door, and I decided I've had enough of this. I had had enough. I'm going to his boss. So I did. I went to the manager and I described to her everything that was going on in this group. I had emails that I shared with her. Emails where it showed that he was subverting all the company policy, that he was denying employee benefits, and generally harassing the group.
Oh my.
She reviewed all of this. Now for me, going over his head was the only way I could solve this. The only thing that I had left for me to do. And luckily, this manager was a person who listened to me, who reviewed all these emails that were still online to be seen, who investigated what was going on in the group. And luckily, he stopped coming to my cubicle. And not only did he stop coming to my cubicle, within a short time, he was gone. Woo! Talk about a great blessing. Well, I'm telling you this story because I don't want you to have to suffer the way I suffered. And I want you to learn from this experience that there are a few things that you can do if you're being bullied in the workplace to protect yourself. And one of the first things that you can do is document everything. That's one of the most important things that you can do. Were there any witnesses there? It's going on in the group. You got names of everybody. If it's just you and maybe the person beside you sees it, have that person's name. Note what times this happened, on what occasions these particular things happen. Keep all your emails, but besides just having these emails on your server, it's a good idea to take physical copies and have them at home. What happens if all of a sudden something happens with your server there at work? Just unfortunately, you got your copies at home. You may need to leave the company and later maybe seek some legal help, you got them physical copies at home. Now, if the bully, secondly, is a co-worker, try and reason with this person to let them know that this is behavior that I do not want and I do not appreciate. Now, if that doesn't work, then you need to go a step higher and go to your supervisor and then perhaps to your HR department. Now, in my case, where the offender was the supervisor, there was no reasoning with this man, so I had to immediately go over his head. I needed to go and talk with manager, which helped right there. Or my next step was to go to HR, and then if I needed to go further, I could have had a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. It's also important for you to know that your company that you work for is totally responsible for the actions of the management and the supervisory staff. We might not have known that, but we are. Now, bullying also rises to the level of harassment when the employee considers that they're being subject to offensive behavior, that is, the person is being hostile to them, or that the behavior in general makes them uncomfortable. Bullying also rises to the level of discrimination and a hostile work environment. Okay, this happens when you are denying employees opportunities there for projects, for assignments, for access to resources, or that there's excessive monitoring of you, or you're being micromanaged, or if they're giving you assignments that there's no way that this could ever be done. Something just to keep you busy, to keep you on this treadmill going nowhere. And it's also discrimination and a hostile work environment when you are subject to endless harassment and people finding fault with you needlessly. There are many people who have experienced all forms of harassment, discrimination, bullying in the workplace. And these problems, unfortunately, seem to be pretty common now. But whatever your circumstances here, you know, if it's because you're a woman and somebody sees that you're easy prey, or if you're a minority and they think they can get away with it, or because you're old and they think you don't have many opportunities, whatever it is, you have rights. And you need to know what those rights are and stand up for them. So, as I conclude with this, I want you to know that nobody needs to needlessly suffer all of this emotional trauma that I did. You can't imagine what this does to you physically, and there's no need for this sort of thing. Your company, almost every company, has in place all kinds of behavioral and legal procedures in place for all of these situations. Your human resources department has established guidelines to handle these circumstances, and so when you see that something like this is happening to you, don't hesitate to use those procedures that are in place. Don't allow yourself to be constant prey at your workplace. Stand up for your rights. At this time, I would like to entertain any kinds of questions that there might be out there. Yes, ma'am?
My coworker is making uncomfortable advances at work. He comes by my office and massages my shoulders and touches my face and calls me sweetie. I have told him not to touch me or demean me, but he continues. What should I do?
All right. This one is with a co-worker who's touching you, and in this case it's like sexually harassing you. This is a problem where you got to be very, very explicit about what you want and what you don't want. You cannot send any mixed messages whatsoever. You got to tell this person very emphatically to stop, to back off, not to touch me. some of these people are not going to listen to what you're saying. And so this is, in every case of this, documentation is so important. You're going to document every time he put his hands on you, he said something that you didn't like, or he did something that was inappropriate, and you're going to make sure that you have the times. You're going to inform your supervisor about this and ask them to handle this situation. If that situation is not handled, that's what HR is there for. So you need to go and to make sure that they are handling the problem to give you relief.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
How can my employer protect employees from bullying in the workplace?
Thank you. That's a very good question, because your employer has a big responsibility. So one thing they have to do is they've got to eliminate this bullying by setting a standard from the top down. They've got to let all of the employees know that bullying is not going to be tolerated here. You're going to let everybody in your company know what are the policies concerning this. You're going to let everybody know that if such a situation happens to you, what exactly you need to do for this. If somebody comes to you with a complaint, you are obligated to investigate to see what the problems are and to make sure that you exercise some appropriate punishment or discipline for this particular problem. One of the more important things to do is when you're selecting your managers and your supervisors, you need to pick people who are able to communicate well with people and who know how to treat all of the employees in a manner. Those are some ways that your company can protect you from bullying.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So my supervisor, he's blocking me from interviewing for another job within the company. What can I do to get out of this toxic group? It seems like he doesn't want to let me.
This is kind of a difficult problem, and it happens a lot in companies. So one thing I think that you have to do is, because the employer or your supervisor has to approve in many cases you leaving. So you need to make an appointment with the supervisor and ask to sit down to discuss this. You want to explain to him what your goals are and what you're looking for new opportunities. You want to ask him, why is it that you are blocking me? What is it that I need to do so that you'll feel that I'm ready to move, that you're able to release me from this group? Document everything that he says and work toward achieving whatever those goals are that will let you be released from the group. Look at what your company's guidelines are on releasing an employee and make sure that they're being followed. If they're not, if you have gone through everything asked of you in that interview with your boss, and be sure that you document that meeting that you have with your boss and everything you said. If you've done everything that's been asked of you and you still are not being released, it is time to go over his head. Now it's time to talk with your manager or whoever, and then HR. These are some things that you can do to protect yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, there's all kinds of bullying and harassment going on in the workplace, and you would think it wouldn't happen because we're all professionals, but it does, and it happens every day. But it's up to you to stand up, to know what the policies are, and protect yourself. If you need to tap dance over somebody's head, get your tap shoes out. This Toastmaster.